Hi everyone, Monkey here. Welcome to Book Club for August 2022. Yeah, here we are. I haven't talked to you guys in a little while. Things have been very busy on my end. Sorry if I sound different. I'm recording a different space than usual. Uh, it's actually, in fact, part of the reason I've been kind of weirdly updating things. I've been kind of absent from like the Discord server, my Twitter for quite a while. So just want to give you guys an update and do some book club because yes, we are back with a passion. We're going to be hosting book club here on Abe Lucas from now on. I'm trying a different format with this episode, as you can see, similar to my favorite games video I did recently. Let me know what you guys think, and we can talk about that later, okay? Let's get into book club. So, first off, Breakfast of Champions by Kurt Vonnegut, as I promised, was the very next book I read. And I gotta say, I thought it was quite funny. I thought it had a lot of good drama, and I really liked the last third of the book personally. It was probably my favorite part, which explores a lot of weird fourth wall breakage stuff, which I'm all about when it's done in a clever way, as it is done here. Very funny premise about a man who thinks everyone is a robot except him. It's quite witty, has characters from Slaughterhouse-Five, which is a book I talked about by Kurt Vonnegut in the last episode of this series. I thought this was really good. I didn't like it as much as Slaughterhouse-Five. It didn't grip me like Slaughterhouse-Five did, but I think it's just as witty and I think it's just as clever. Although I would say Slaughterhouse-Five feels a bit more focused than this one. This one feels like it jumps around a lot, which is ironic when you're comparing it to Slaughterhouse, right? Anyways, I thought this was great. I really liked it quite a bit, and I would recommend it. Next, I read Welcome to the Monkey House, which was a collection of short stories, also by Vonnegut. This is the last Vonnegut I'm going to talk about for a little while, I promise. Because by the time I got to this, I did start getting that feeling of a little bit too much time with the author, right? A while back, I read George Carlin's autobiography, and I talked about how I felt like it was just too much time with him, and I feel like by the third Vonnegut book, that's how I start feeling with this. There are quite a few good short stories in this. Welcome to the Monkey House is a very good one. There are a couple others which, oh gosh, I'm totally blanking because I finished this back in like the beginning of July, so I'm going to have to write in the description the short stories that were my favorite. I really liked Who Are We This Time? That was another one of my favorites, which there was a fantastic television film adaptation of, which is on YouTube, which I watched after reading it, that I really liked as well. Sorry I can't give you more information. I totally am blanking right now, but there are quite a few good short stories in here. But by the time I finished it, I was like, I don't know if I feel like that was worth going all the way through, because there were a few I liked, but quite a few of them just didn't click with me. Not to say they were poorly written, just that I feel the highlights of the book are definitely the highlights for a reason. They're the most clever, most interesting premises. After that, I read To Kill a Mockingbird, which was this month's recommendation by Harper Lee. I thought this book was fantastic. It gripped me. This book is 400 something pages long, and I read it in like 3 days. I was so gripped by it. I was on a vacation while I read this and had ample time to get through it, and I thought this book was just fantastic. I hadn't read it since the end of middle school, I think, and it's one of those things you could never ever comprehend, never appreciate fully in when you're 13 14 years old. This is something you got to come back to when you're older, and I can safely say is one of my favorite books now. It's clever, it's gripping, emotional, funny, very funny, which a lot of people probably wouldn't believe, but it's very funny. And I'm interested in reading the follow-up to it, though it's technically not really canon because it wasn't ever really self-published. Anything like this was by Lee. The other one was kind of published under her nose, though I've heard some interesting things about it. But speaking solely To Kill a Mockingbird, this book is very entertaining. It has some of the most realized characters I've ever seen in a novel, and Atticus Finch, of course, is just a super iconic character who is wonderful to listen to and spend time with, and I feel like you get just enough time with him, because while I was reading it this time, I was like, wow, I feel like Atticus was in this book a lot more when I was younger, but you know what? I think I was so intrigued by the character for so long because they use him just the right amount. They don't overuse him, and if he was in this book any more than he was, I feel like his impact would be lessened in literary and just pop culture history, He's also surprisingly not the most interesting character in the book. He's one of the most interesting for sure, but there are plenty of super interesting characters. I was just as engaged by Scout and Jem and Boo Radley. Every character in this book. Again, haven't read this in a month either, in like a month and a half, so I don't remember quite all the characters' names. But I tore through this book, and it's pretty rare that I tear through a book like this. I would say this, again, is one of my favorite books of all time now, and I will definitely be coming back to it in the future. I also love the film adaptation of this. I saw it back in January when I was sick, and when I watched it, I fell in love with that film adaptation as well, which, if you're not going to read the book, at least check out the movie. The movie's perfect, a flawless film. Anyway, To Kill a Mockingbird, what else can I say? That hasn't been said before 100,000 times and probably more articulate than me. So moving on, after that, I read Gullivers Travels by Jonathan Swift. This is the copy I read. I'm showing the copies of the books covers that I read myself. So I was very surprised to find that that Gullivers Travels actually has more to it than Lilliput, because after I bought the book, I realized that this is referenced in Earthbound in the Lilliput Steppes, which is the island that Gulliver ends up on towards the beginning, where he encounters all of the tiny people who tie him up in that iconic image. And that same thing with To Kill a Mockingbird, because Atticus Finch's name is referenced in Porky's dad, Aloysius Minch, a clear muck-up of it. But Gulliver's Travels, if you only knew that Lilliput, if you thought Lilliput was the entire novel, you would probably be inclined to think that this is a picture of Gulliver in the glasses here looking at this guy on the cover, right? But no, that's really not the case. Gulliver also goes to an island of giants where he's kept in a essentially like a wooden box. He goes to a lot. There's quite a few places he goes to, and I don't want to spoil the latter two because those ones are some of the most bizarre and interesting. I was just caught off guard by how truly surreal this book gets, especially in the last fourth, in the last part of the book, which, if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. It goes bizarrely sour in the end, but not in a bad way, in a very intriguing way that you will not forget about. I thought the book was very funny and witty as well. I like how seriously it takes it. It's written very much like a travel log from those times, and I thought it was very funny because once you get contrasted and juxtaposed by all the fantastical fairy tale elements that it incorporates later, it makes for a very enjoyable read. And it's not too long either. It was only like 225 pages, I think. So I could easily recommend this one as something lighter. A Girl in Traffic. This is a recent book by, I don't want to butcher the name, so I won't say it, but there you have it. Now, this book deals with some very serious subject matter and has a very clear message to say, and for that, I applaud it for having a very clear point to deliver. However, all of my criticisms have nothing to do with the subject matter and all with the writing. This writing felt to me very amateurish, and it hurts to say that. Now, the writer, it should be said, the writer of this book, the author, is known for her public speaking and such like that, and lectures on the topic that this book is about, which I'm not going to really touch on in this video, but I wanted to mention. Now, she's a lecturer, and I'm sure she's great at that, but that does not necessarily mean you should write a novel about it, because an informational book would be one thing, but this felt very... I'm going to be honest, it feels kind of like a high schooler wrote it, and it makes me sad to say that because it is such an interesting and important topic to be discussed, and I welcome it into the world of realistic fiction. However, I found the way it was written, the dialogue and the adjectives used, very stilted, and it was directly in opposition with a book I read earlier this year, On Writing by Stephen King, where he talks about the do's and don'ts of writing, in his opinion, and how much these fly in the face. Not to say that one writer's opinion of how things should go means it has to apply or that it's a standard or anything, but I just found it funny comparing that a little bit. I found the characters not overly interesting, but however, I would like to say that I find the actual progress of story beats and events to be somewhat engaging. I find it an interesting idea. I just think its execution was not great because the characters aren't written very well, but the actual story, the structure of it is interesting, and that's about all I'm going to say on this. I don't want to linger on this one too long. And finally, I read The Shack by Paul Young, which was recommended, actually, funny enough, in a book by Stephen King, where a character says the book is life-changing. And I gotta say, I didn't really care for this book all that much, sadly. I wasn't expecting it. It turns out to be very much a book about religion and one's relationship with a higher power, which was not something I was expecting when I started the book. And the first 60, 70 pages of this book, you're led to believe it's going to be something like Gone Girl or Prisoners, something like that that's very police procedural, and then it takes a complete turn and it's a book about philosophy and religion. And while the philosophical questions that get asked are quite interesting, I found it very distracting, some choices made, because it feels like the book is undermining its own points at many points. And again, this is a very contentious book because of how much it's about religion, and it's very contentious among literary circles as well as religious circles, so I'm not going to try to linger too much on what happens in the book. I'm just going to say, though I think the writing is far from awful, again, I found it to be quite on the nose at points and wasn't very subtle. It lacks a lot of subtlety. It was the same, a problem that a girl in traffic also very much had. This book was not my favorite. This was probably my second least favorite read of the last month after A Girl in Traffic, unfortunately, but I did find the premise interesting. So, with all that said, let's do some updates before we end this video. I want to say that, yes, this series has moved to Ape Lucas from now on. This is a new structure of it I'm trying with the slideshow here. Let me know what you guys think. I'm also going to be phasing out the monthly book recommendation like I was doing the last few videos, just because since I have the official Goodreads account, I don't find it overly necessary to necessary to tell you, because then it just becomes an obligation to me. And you also probably noticed that, yes, I did not review the first Mother novel. I'm sorry, but I did end up just changing my mind. I will read it eventually, and I will make a video on it on my main channel most likely, but I just wanted to make it clear that I decided not to because I feel like I would rather have a video, I would rather have one video that's focused entirely on that than a video that's split up between multiple topics, like this one was, when it comes to that novel. So I'll get back to it in the future, but I am sorry. But again, phasing out the monthly book club pick, just because since I have the official Goodreads and you can see what I'm reading on there at any time, it doesn't seem overly necessary. If you have any suggestions for books or want to talk about books you've read recently, go ahead and leave them in the comments or talk in our general media channel on the Discord server, and I will see you guys next month.